Okay, everyone, time for another lesson in how the wealthy operate. So, I don't know if a lot of people think about it in this way, but the United States owes this huge debt. I mean, it's just like a debt we'll never be able to pay back. And it made me think a while ago, the United States government, they do all kinds of unethical, immoral, and illegal things all the time. They'll go into a country and they'll just attack people and say, "Oop, we made a mistake. Sorry." Eminent domain laws where they'll just tell you we're going to take your land from you and give you what we think it's worth. We know you're destitute and impoverished, and you can't pay your taxes, but we're going to charge you interest on the tax to make sure that you never get out of debt. They do all kinds of insane things, pardoning or allowing companies to literally poison people. Just talked about the lead in Lunchables. They allow companies to purposely allow companies to sell cancer causing products to children. The United States government is not like an ambivalent heavenly force that has been created by some sort of god to reign over us. No, this just it's the government. It's a bunch of men and women on a position of power. And the reason I said all of that is if the United States owes this debt to these world banks and to these investors that they take money from, that they take these loans out with, if they owe this much money and it's that much of a problem, why don't they just not pay it? Why doesn't the United States government just say we're not going to pay this? I, what what's the World Bank going to do? If the United States government says we're not going to pay this loan, what would happen? Seriously, what would happen? Who's going to enforce this loan repayment debt thing? Who's going to come after us and attack us? Who exactly do we owe the money to? Why doesn't the United States just do what it's been doing since its inception? Unethical, immoral, illegal things, and say either we're not going to pay this debt or you're going to have to alter the payment arrangement, alter the interest rate. Why don't they just bully these people that they owe the money to the way they bully everyone else? It's the United States government. Aren't they supposed to have the strongest military on the planet? So what? Someone's gonna go to war with us over this debt? Who is so powerful that we can't just say we're not gonna pay the debt back to you? We're just not gonna pay it. Now what? Why wouldn't the United States ever do that? I know a lot of people up here are going to be thinking to themselves, well, that would be wrong to do. That's why they don't do it. That's why I said all the stuff I said earlier. It's the United States government. What are you talking about? It's wrong. They do wrong stuff all the time. We are literally using money right now to murder babies in another country. Literally. It's not me being hyperbolic or me being outlandish. No, the United States government is literally taking money that it can use to help starving homeless people, and they're using that money to burn and blow up babies. I don't know. I know that people have been desensitized so that it doesn't hit as the way it should, but the United States government is using their money instead of using it to help the world. They're killing children right now. So, I, so that whole concept of, well, the United States government is making sure they pay the debt because it's the right thing to do. The United States government isn't known for just doing things because it's the right thing to do. We all know that. We all know that the United States government does not just do what they feel is right. They do what is best for them. So if you put all that into context, you have to then sit down and say, well, then why doesn't the United States ever do that? Why wouldn't this government that has always just taken whatever it wanted, why doesn't it just say we're not paying the debt, erase the debt, or change the terms of the loan, or change the interest rate, or whatever, and just say no, we're not going to do that. And don't let any money people say, well, it would mess up the balance of the. No, it's none of that. The United States government doesn't just tell whoever they owe this debt to that we're not paying it because the United States government owes the money to itself.
Foreign governments and investors only own about 30% of overall US debt, whereas the remaining 70% is either held by US investors, the Federal Reserve, or even the US government itself. US investors, like banks, institutions, and regular people, own about 33% of the total debt. The Federal Reserve, or the US's privatized central bank, owns about 12% of the total debt. The US government itself actually owns roughly 27% of total debt. That may not make a lot of sense.
There's no real debt. That's not how things work. The United States government is owned by the wealthy. So the wealthy create these scenarios where the United States government needs to borrow money from themselves. And then they write numbers down or they type numbers into a system. They're not giving over pounds of gold or pounds or bags of cash. No, they just write on some paper, this is what I'm giving you and this is what you owe me. And then the United States government, because they're owned by the wealthy, makes sure that that debt, that money is paid from the citizens into the pockets of the people that own the government. So let me just put it into perspective one more time. The wealthy own our government. They use their government, because they own it, they use their government to create scenarios where they need to come up with a debt structured program that the citizens are going to have to just pump money into. So really, all of these loans, they're really just a chain around the neck of the citizens to ensure that the citizens are always going to be paying money to the wealthy. That's why the debt keeps going up. They're never going to get rid of the debt because the debt isn't a real thing. It's just a concept. It's just an imaginary thing that's been put into people's minds to make them say, well, we have to always pay taxes. It's a way to ensure that the United States citizens, that the poorer people, the masses, that they're always just pumping money into the pockets of the wealthy. That's what this debt is. Unfortunately, people are not smart enough to catch on, and the smart ones who do know this, they don't say anything to you because more than likely they're getting paid to keep their mouths shut or to redirect you. It's the people in the middle that are kind of dumb like me, who openly say this stuff. I'm probably gonna get targeted or something, but that's what's going on here. That's another lesson. This is wealthy one-on-one. The wealthy create this whole scenario where they just tell you, because again, they're not handing us gold or cash. They're just telling you, hey guys, some money needed to be printed, and a loan was taken out, and you're gonna have to pay that back with your taxes. Yeah, sorry, and that debt will never go away. So guess what? You're just gonna be paying me until you die, and until your children die, and until their children die, and until their children die, and until their children die, until I don't know, somebody comes along and something happens on the planet that alters this. But as long as these wealthy people aren't being affected by anyone or anything, this debt will always be here, and the debt will always grow. The debt can't go away. The debt exists to ensure that all of the citizens that are born into this country always pay money out to the wealthy to keep them wealthy. That's why the United States government will never say, you know what, this debt is, these terms we realize are actually too crooked and corrupt, and we can't afford them, and our people can't afford them, so we're not going to pay it. Now what? They'll never do that. Because the debt exists in order to keep the wealthy wealthy. And the wealthy created this system because they own our government, which means they own you. I hope that was helpful. Talk about that with your friends this weekend, and let me know what you think.